Hey guys, Britta Albert here. If this is your first time here, I am a spiritual transformational life coach, and it's my goal for this channel to help you overcome the obstacles that are standing in the way of you living your best and most authentic life. In today's video, I want to talk about something that happened a couple months ago. This is something that I have really been being guided to share, and I've been really resistant to share. Part of it is because it is so personal. The other part because it is still so raw and fresh. And thirdly, because it's unlike anything I have experienced before. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know I've experienced some pretty crazy supernatural things in my life. And really what you guys know just scratches the surface. This is something I literally had never experienced before. I had a feeling, I don't even know how to explain it. The best way I can describe it is innate. I instinctively knew I was able to do something, and I don't even know what it's called. Now, there is something called remote viewing, and there's something called astral projection. Now, astral projection, there can be a couple definitions for it, but as a kind of general consensus, it's what we do every night when we sleep. We leave our bodies, our spirit leaves our bodies temporarily, or you can call it not really your spirit, but your ethereal body leaves your physical body and goes somewhere else while you sleep, while you dream. There are people who can do that on command. There are people who can do that by meditation. There are definitely, just go on YouTube here and search for astral projection, and it will pull up hundreds of videos about people's personal experiences with astral projection. Then with remote viewing, it's a little bit different. With remote viewing, you can be where you are, but okay, so the best explanation of remote viewing would be if you've seen the show Stranger Things. Now, I've talked about Stranger Things before in other videos, and I love this show, you guys, because it is such a great metaphor for so many metaphysical and supernatural things. This, essentially what Eleven does is she remote views. When she goes into the deprivation tank, or she covers her ears and closes her eyes or puts a blindfold on, and she's able to block out the outside world, she's able to view different things. She's able to look around in different places. Now, people are not aware of her most of the time while she's remote viewing, and she's actually seeing people and hearing their conversations live. That is remote viewing. With astral projection, instead of just watching things, you're more there with it. It's a much more physical experience rather than kind of like a movie screen that you're just watching and observing, like remote viewing. What I did is kind of in between both of them. It was not remote viewing, nor was it astral projection. A few months ago, my grandmother passed away. This is my maternal grandmother, so there's a lot of significance there for me. Losing anybody, of course, is not something that you want to go through, but as many of you know, my mom and my brother passed away several years ago. So the fact that it's my mom's mom had some bittersweet qualities to it. Well, my grandmother, she's had dementia for quite some time now. In the last couple of years, I'll say at least, she hasn't known who I was even. She hasn't recognized most people, and for me, she'd been gone for a while, at least for the grandma that I knew. Even if I'd wanted to call her up and talk to her, it was impossible because she was not able to hold a conversation and she had no idea who I was. So I'd kind of said my goodbyes to her a while ago. Now, it doesn't really make it that much easier when it actually happens. Even though you're prepared for it, I was not able to go out there for the funeral or for her last days. and my family's across the country. They're in Oregon, I'm in South Carolina. So my sister was giving me updates on my grandma, and she was having a really difficult time letting go. There's a few different things that play into this, just like every situation. I'm not going to claim that my grandmother's dementia was caused by a closed crown chakra, but that is one of the things that can happen when we cut ourselves off from source. Now, my grandmother was a very gifted woman. I think a lot of my gifts come from her, even though she would never really talk about it. But there's some truths that were in her life that she repressed. I don't know what they were. I don't even begin to pretend to know what they were, and I have no judgment for her whatsoever. But I know that that can play a role with the psyche and with your mind. And just like everything else, these belief systems, these paradigms, these programs that we have, they're literally that. They're programs. So why do I say all of that? I say that as a preface to explain what comes next. So I'm here in South Carolina. It's the last couple days of my grandmother's life. They know that it's coming. The doctors have prepared the family. And my grandmother doesn't really recognize anybody anymore, and she's calling out for her mother, and she's saying she's scared. And nothing will break your heart more than seeing somebody that you love in pain and agony and suffering. So I wanted to do something, but what could I do from across the country? And what could I have realistically done there anyway? This is where my innate came in. I don't know how I knew what to do, and I really didn't even know if it would work, but it was definitely worth a try. And what I did is I went to a very quiet place where I would not be disturbed. I put on a sleep mask, blindfold that I have, and I focused all of my attention and energy on my grandmother. And the reason that I say that this is different from remote viewing or astral projection is because I didn't go anywhere per se. I connected my consciousness with her consciousness. So what does that mean? So I saw my grandmother in her room, her hospital room in the nursing home that she was in. I saw her laying in her bed, curled up in an almost fetal position, blankets tucked in around her little stuffed animal. And I saw her suffering. But when I looked around the room, there was nobody else there. So I know in reality that her daughter was there, my aunt, my uncle was there, her son, my grandpa was there, her husband, my sister was there, her granddaughter. There was lots of people in the family who were there at her bedside surrounding her. So it wasn't remote viewing because I wasn't watching everything live as it was unfolding. I was seeing the room through my grandmother's memory. The room that she had seen, whether she was conscious of it or not, was imprinted in her awareness and her consciousness. So when I connected with her and I found her lying in her bed, what I was seeing was her memory of that room. So as I was there, I called in Archangel Michael, and I called in my great-grandmother, which would have been my grandmother's mother. I called in my mother, and I called in my brother. I also called in other relatives and loved ones of my grandmother's to come and be there with her. And my great-grandmother was sitting at the head of my grandmother's bed, and my grandmother's head was in her mother's lap. And she was kind of just petting her head and just loving on her like a mother would. My mother was sitting at the foot of my grandmother's bed, holding my grandmother's hand. Archangel Michael and my brother were standing at the foot of the bed. Now, when there's nursing home type environments, you have what I call parasites that like to lurk and hang around. These parasites don't cause any suffering, but they feed off of the suffering that's already happening. So, in order to protect the space, I asked my brother and Archangel Michael to protect the room and keep everything that is negative out. Then I started to show my grandmother my memories. And it was like there was a hologram or some sort of, it really was closer to a hologram because it was almost like a see-through projector where I was projecting my memories onto the screen. And I could see through the screen and see my grandmother, but I could also see my childhood memories. Now, what I was doing is I was sharing my memories, my most fondest memories when I was a child with my grandmother in order to ease her pain and show her my love for her. I was showing her my perception of her through the eyes of a child and how much I cared about her. And it was my way of telling her it's okay, that she can let go, and showing her how much I love her. Now, I don't know what triggered it. It may have been something that was going on in one of the memories that I showed her that I was unaware of because of my age as a child. I had no idea what was actually going on in the world. I just have this fond memory of my grandmother, but that perhaps there was something going on at that time that was more of an event that she had suppressed, something she didn't want to remember, that I looked at as a fond memory, but it triggered something in her. Now, I don't know if you've ever played a video game before where you have the primary character, which is your character, and you're moving around. Then there are secondary characters or background characters that really don't interact with you. And these background characters, these programs, they can sometimes like walk into walls, and they get into the wall, but they don't really realize that they are walking because they're not conscious, they're not aware, they're just a program. So you see this avatar that's just continuing walking, even though they're up against a wall. Well, as I was showing my grandmother these memories, all of a sudden there was this orange humanoid thing that came right in front of my face, just like that, where I could still see around it, but it blocked me from my grandmother and essentially broke that connection. So I was still sharing consciousness with her because I was still in this hospital type room in this nursing home, but I couldn't actually physically see her. So because I couldn't see her, I couldn't focus on what I was trying to do. Now, I'd already asked for assistance to keep everything negative away. So at first I thought this thing was negative. I thought it was a lower density entity, and I was feeling it. I was trying to figure out what it was and trying to identify by feeling its vibration if it was negative or what it was. And I was so confused at the time because it was neither. It was literally neutral. It was a program. It was just responding. And this program was programmed to interrupt or keep buried these things that did not want to be felt or experienced or remembered. So I reaffirmed what I needed, and I asked Archangel Michael to remove this program. And just like that, this orange humanoid program that was just walking in my face was gone. So I resumed again to show my grandmother my memories and just continue to pour love into her, tell her how much I loved her. I asked for divine light to come into the space, to come down over her head and wrap around her like a blanket, and to hold her, comfort her. And then I asked that even though I was ending my meditation and I was saying my goodbyes to my grandmother, I asked that everybody continue to stay and hold space until she had passed. So her mother to stay, my mother to stay, all of her family members to stay, Archangel Michael and my brother to continue to hold this space for my grandmother and keep her comforted and safe until she felt ready to let go. After I was done with that, I shared my story with my partners in Shine I told you about. I believe it was in my last video, Jody and Olga, and I shared it with my husband as well. And at first my husband had the same reaction that I did. He thought it was a parasite. He thought it was a lower density entity, or what some people would call a demon. And I told him I thought the same thing too, but it didn't feel that way. It was neutral, like it was not aware of me. It was literally like those secondary characters. It was just in my face and it was just walking, but not going anywhere. And it was like bouncing around and just staying right here in my face, blocking my vision from anything around it. And my friend Jody had a observation that perhaps it was the program of dementia, the way that it behaved, being chaotic in nature and completely just oblivious, the way that dementia is in the mind of somebody who suffers from it. So I can't tell you 100% what that thing was, other than I am 100% certain it was some sort of program. And to be able to say, I have seen the programs that we create for ourselves in action, I understood its purpose. Its purpose was not destruction. Its purpose, even though it was chaos, it really was not chaos. Its purpose was protection and self-preservation. So this is why it's so important that we face our traumas, we face our inner demons, we face our shadows, and we continue to heal ourselves. Because then you don't need your ego to protect you. You don't need programming to protect you, because at the end of the day, you don't need protection because you are whole. And again, I reiterate, this is no judgment to my grandma or anything that she went through. She did end up passing about 2 days later, and I was told that she had a small smile on her face and she seemed at peace. Now you know what I know. Believe what you will. I know what I experienced, and I would like to think that, not that I did that or that, I helped her move on, and not that I didn't either, but just to know the place that I was able to help create spiritually, to hold space for her and give her comfort. And I'm sure her mother was already there, and I'm positive my mother was already there, and her family was already there. But for me to know that they were there, and to get that glimpse on the other side before her spirit left her body on this earth, was quite miraculous. I hope that this helps somebody out there get a glimpse to understand something like this. Again, it is so, so, so important to not be in a victim mentality, to understand how strong you are and that you don't need these paradigms and belief systems anymore. You have graduated. You are able to heal, and it is your responsibility to do so. I love you all so much. If this video resonated with you, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel and help us continue to grow this community. Share this video with somebody that you think would really appreciate hearing these words, or if you need some help with healing your own trauma, or maybe you just need somebody to talk to heal your own grief, I'm going to put a link below. I'm opening up a few more sessions for this coming weekend. Hour-long sessions. If you've never had one with me, the first one is free. Go ahead and click that link, see if there's a time that works for your schedule, and I look forward to talking with you later. Bye, y'all.